Welcome to the first episode of Basketball Analytics. It is currently June 4th, 2019, and tomorrow is a big day. It is Game 3 in the 2019 NBA Finals. The series is currently tied at 1-1, and just to recap, the Raptors took Game 1 at 118 to 109, and the Warriors took the Raptors 109 to 104 in Game 2. Both games at a point difference of less than 10. Game 3 prediction could go either way, especially with KD said to be still out for Game 3 and Thompson with his injury from Game 2. Cousins put on a great performance in Game 2 and seems to be unfazed from his past injuries in the regular season. We look forward to watching him tomorrow. In this first episode, we're going to do a comparison of our NBA playoff finalists, especially with a focus on the Warriors and the Raptors. We're going to use over 300,000 lines of data scraped from Basketball Reference to visually and analytically describe both teams. The data was scraped using a programming language called Python, indexed into Elasticsearch, and visualized in Kibana. I'm excited to also put this into the cloud with the help of Amazon Web Services. My name is Ashley, and I'm a Bay Area developer with an insane passion for sports, and in particular basketball. So let's get started. In sports, we're either creating opportunities or executing opportunities. And we're going to do a side-by-side comparison, so let's get started. On the offense, we're going to compare scoring, assists, and turnovers. Scoring and assists. Scoring is the act of executing on opportunities, and assists is the act of creating opportunities. And in general, we want to decrease the number of turnovers that we create because this decreases the number of opportunities. Next, we're going to take some defensive metrics like rebounding, blocks, and steals. And we want to get as many of these as possible because this creates opportunities for the teams. And so lastly, we're going to look at what guys we can depend on in the finals to execute and what guys we can depend on to create opportunities. And I think this is especially important to look at because there were many games played in the regular season. That definitely do reflect the performance of the different teams. So let's get started. All right, guys, this is Kibana. And this is a dashboard used to visualize our over 300,000 data points. And right here, we have the 5 teams that made it to our 2019 NBA playoffs. And it looks a little bit complicated, but no worries. I'm going to break down each visualization in a way that's easy to understand. So right here, we have games played. We can click right up here and we can do a full screen and look at what this means. So right here, we have the Golden State Warriors, Houston, the Lakers, Portland, and Toronto. And we can see here that all 5 teams played an accumulated total of 82 games right here. And just one tip, if you want to have an easy way to follow this visualization, just follow my cursor and you can actually see the value of the data points right there. So you can see unique count of date is 82. And all of them played the same number of games in this data set. All right. So let's minimize that. And then let's go back here. And so why is this significant? So what I'm trying to look at is how many games all of the teams played. And then my first comparison is scoring. So what is the total number of points summed up all together from all of the 82 games? So you can see here, go to scoring right here and do a full screen. All right, you can see here that during the 82 games, the Golden State Warriors scored the most amount of points. So accumulatively, they scored 9,610 points. That's what you can see here. Toronto is second at 9,384 points, Houston at 9,338, the Lakers, etc. You can read that right there, and then Portland. Why is this important? Because the total number of points scored during the game is equal to the number of opportunities that each team was able to execute on. So this is super important. This is telling us how often our teams are able to execute. So as you can see, Golden State and Toronto are very comparable. And we see the same thing on assists. So if we just full screen this, AST stands for assists, and you can see Golden State is still number one at 1,117. Second is Toronto at 1,093, Houston, Portland, and Lakers. So why is this important? This is showing us that our teams are creating these opportunities for the players to execute on, and this is super important. And so it's really cool to look at this comparison. Next, we want to look at turnovers, TOV. That means turnovers. So if we open this up, we'll full screen it here. We see again, Warriors is number one. It's essentially not really a good thing to be number one at turnovers, but you'll see that they're still there. My opinion on this, even if you create turnovers, but you're creating more opportunities to make up for the turnovers, it's still okay. So we have Toronto second here, Houston, Portland, and then Lakers. And by the way, this visualization up here is actually the number of points scored during a game on a certain date for this whole period. So for all 82 games. And you can actually just look, for example, if I hover here, Toronto on October 25th scored 116 points. And it was probably against one of these teams here. So this is why I love Elasticsearch. It's really easy to visualize your data. And it's really easy to make these visualizations. I'm telling you, if you try to make them on any other platform, you have a really hard time. Next, so we compared scoring, assists, and turnovers. Let's look at the top scorers from each team. Actually, let's just go right to Golden State and Toronto. If you'd like me to go more in depth on any other team, just let me know in the comment section what teams you would like and what metrics you'd like to see. But we're just going to go right to Golden State and Toronto because the game is tomorrow and we really want to know who are our top scorers, who are our top rebounders, and who performed the best. So let's enable that right now. So what this is doing is actually taking all the other teams out and only comparing the Warriors to Toronto. So we've already looked at scoring, assists, and turnovers. Let's look at who are our top scorers on each team. All right, what's really cool with Kibana is, again, you just hover over it and you can see. So let's do the Warriors first. So this big part right here is Kevin Durant. And he actually accounts for over 21% of the points that the Warriors made during this regular season. This is super significant because, again, he's injured and he was out in Game 1, Game 2, and probably in Game 3. So it's super important that the rest of the team do what they did in Game 2 and actually make up for the lack of Kevin Durant. Let's look at number 2, Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry, he accounts for over 19% of the points. Next, I think you can all guess it, but number 3 is Klay Thompson. He accounts for over 17% of the Warriors' points. And then next you have Quinn Cook at a little over 5%, Looney at a little over 5% as well, Cousins with a little bit over 5%, Draymond Green is a little over 5%. And then you can also look at the other players here, Gala, Kinney, Livingston, etc., etc. So you can see just from this visualization here, the lack of Kevin Durant is a huge handicap for the Warriors, and I'm sure you've heard it everywhere on the TV, on the radio, and any type of sports reporting. But the lack of Kevin Durant, he could actually analytically look at it. It's 20%. It's over 20%. Now, let's look at Toronto. So we go to this big chunk right here. Leonard, I'm sure you all guessed it, accounts for over 17% of the Raptors' points. Next, Sakam, he accounts to almost 15%. Ibaka, over 12%. Lowry with over 10%. Danny Green with over 9%. Van Velt with almost 8%. Powell with almost 6%. And so if you just look at this visualization here, let's just quickly, so if we do 20% plus around 20% plus 17, so almost 70% of the Warriors' scoring are done by these three main players: Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, and Klay Thompson. And so with Kevin Durant out and Klay Thompson on a day-to-day, we don't know if he's going to play in Game 3. It's super important that these other players, like Stephen Curry, as we know, but all of these players like Quinn Cook, Looney, Cousins, make up for the lack of Durant and the possible lack of Thompson. And later we're going to get into who can be our main three-point shooters when Durant and Klay Thompson aren't there, and who are our main two-point shooters and who are our main free throw shooters. All right, so we're done with the top scorers. All right, let's minimize that. Next, we're going to look at who does the most assisting. So let's open that up on full screen. So why is assisting important? It's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg. How can you score if you're not somehow being assisted in a certain way? And making the assist is so important. You're kind of like the playmaker. You set the tone of the game and you make the plays to execute on opportunities. So you create opportunities for the shooters to execute on. So it's super important. So let's look at who within the Warriors and the Raptors create the most opportunities. Again, Kevin Durant with over 19% of the Warriors' assists. Next, Draymond Green with 19%. Draymond Green in Game 2 did an excellent job at setting the tone, and I really think with the help of Green and Cousins on Game number 2, it really changed it for them and really helped them get that win on Game number 2. So this visualization really shows how important Draymond Green is to the Warriors, especially with Kevin Durant not there. Next, Stephen Curry with over 15%. Obviously, as Stephen Curry, he's a point guard and a shooting guard. As a point guard, you are the person that creates the plays. You set the tone. You tell people to calm down when there's too much energy and you need to focus more. You're really the tone setter. And then next we got Iguodala at 4. He also did a really great job for the Warriors in Game 2. Thompson with almost 8%. Thompson is an amazing shooter, and so I think what happens is people assist him in getting his points, especially on the threes. He's also an amazing two-point shooter as well. And then got Looney, of course, Quinn Cook, and then Sean Livingston. He made an excellent assist to Iguodala in the last few seconds of Game 2. And then next, if we look at Toronto, oh man, this is a huge block. Kevin Lowry with almost 28% of the Raptors' assists. He's the point guard, he's the playmaker. So he's setting up people for their shots. He's setting up people for the plays. And he almost accounts to Stephen Curry and Draymond Green. Well, yeah, almost those two together. He almost accounts for that percentage of assists together. And then you got Van Vliet with almost 15%. He is also a point guard on the Raptors, and so obviously he'll have a good amount of assists. Next, you have Siakam with over 12%. And then you got Leonard with almost 10%. And then Danny Green. Right. And then Gasol with almost 5. So there you can see who actually creates the most assists on both teams. So again, on the Warriors, since they do have a handicap with Durant not playing, we got to look to these other players like Green, Curry, Iguodala, and Thompson if he plays to create the assists for the people that are open to execute on the opportunities. All right, next, let's look at turnovers. I'm just going to go up here again and full screen. All right, so who on the Warriors creates the most turnovers? Surprisingly, over 20% of the turnovers that the Golden State Warriors create were caused by Kevin Durant, and he is one of the best players in the league, and he has many turnovers for the Warriors. And what this is telling me is that it's kind of okay to have turnovers as long as you're creating assists and getting your team some points. You're going to make mistakes, and turnovers are one of them. After Kevin Durant, the next heavy hitter is Curry. He accounts for over 17% of the turnovers. Next, we have Draymond Green with over 15% of the turnovers, and Thompson with over 10, Cousins with over 6, Iguodala with almost 5, and etc., etc. All right, and then if we look at the Warriors, who creates the most turnovers? Lowry. So he creates over 17% of the turnovers within this regular season. After him, Siakam with almost 15%. Leonard with over 11%. Ibaka with over 10. Van Vliet with almost 8. And Danny Green with over 7. So just to recap, we looked at metrics that execute on opportunities on the offensive, like scoring, assisting, and turnovers. And then we looked at who actually accounts for the most scoring, the most assists, and the most turnovers. Now we're going to go to the defensive, and we're going to look at who does the most rebounding, who does the most blocks, and who does the most steals. So if you just maximize rebounds and see who does that. So again, full screen, very similar. As we've seen since the beginning of looking at the data right here, Golden State and Toronto throughout this regular season actually are very comparable on scoring, assists, turnovers, rebounds, blocks, and steals. So this is why this current 2019 NBA Finals are going to be really awesome games, and everyone should tune in to watch because they're going to be super close and super competitive and very, very entertaining. So here we can see throughout this past regular season, the Golden State did over 3,700 rebounds, and and Toronto with over 3,700 rebounds as well. This. Then let's look at the blocks. Oh, but here, during the regular season, Golden State did a lot more blocks in this last season than Toronto. And we're going to look at who does that. Another comparison I'd like to do in a later video would be the height to weight ratio on each team and each position. And this will kind of give us an indication of these teams, and give us an indication how well these teams would perform on all of these different metrics against other teams with similar maybe performance, athletic performance, and different metrics that we see here today. And then if we look at steals here again, we actually see the opposite pattern here. So we see that right here, Golden State has had more blocks throughout the season than Toronto. And then if we go over here to the bottom right, we see that Toronto during this regular season had more steals than the Warriors. And so let's go down here and check out who actually does this. So if we open this top rebounds pie chart, you can really see it here. Let's look at the Golden State Warriors first. All right, so Kevin Durant, he accounts for over 13% of the Warriors' rebounds. After him, we see Draymond Green with almost 13%. So this is really interesting here. On the assists and on the rebounds, Draymond Green and Kevin Durant are actually very comparable. So with the lack of Kevin Durant, you can really look to Draymond Green to kind of compensate for this. Next, we have Looney with over 11%. And then we have Stephen Curry with almost 10%. Klay Thompson with almost 8%. We have Jonas here with almost 8%. Iguodala with almost 7%. And then let's look at our top rebounders for Toronto. We have Ibaka with almost 17%. Siakam with over 15%. Leonard with over 12%. Danny Green with almost 9%. Again, Kyle Lowry with, so that's the breakdown of who does the most rebounding on both teams. Rebounding is super important, and I'll tell you why. Let's take, for example, Stephen Curry, who's probably one of the best three-point shooters that we have right now in the NBA. Well, I looked at his stats, and he is an average 50% shooter from the three-point line, give or take, I'll do this in another video, but I think it's one standard deviation is 0.2. So given any game, he could make between 40% to 70% at the three-point line. And there are some games where he even made 100% of his 3 points. But this doesn't happen at every game. So let's just take the average 50% or 60%. This means that 1 out of 2 shots that Stephen Curry makes from the three-point line will not go in. What does this mean? This means that he can't execute on the opportunities given to him around 50% of the time. So how do we get these opportunities back? Well, with rebounds. So Stephen Curry, before he shoots, has to make sure some of these good rebounders are there, like Kevin Durant, Green, Looney. He's got to make sure that these guys are there to get the rebound. Durant, Green, Looney, because then he can just shoot again. Basketball is a numbers game. You just take the percentage of the shots you're able to get in, and then you just multiply it. So if you're Stephen Curry and you want to get 30 points in threes within a given game, and you know your average is around 50%, that means that you have to shoot 20 times to get 10 baskets in. So in order for Stephen Curry to shoot 20 times, he's got to make sure that his best rebounders are there to get the rebound when he doesn't get it in, so he can just shoot again. Basketball is a numbers game, and it's a function of how many opportunities you can create and exit. Rebounding is super important. It's just as important as scoring. We've got Ibaka, Siakam, Leonard, Green, Lowry. We've got those guys that are the best rebounders. All right, let's look at the next metric. So we looked at rebounds. Let's now look at blocks. This is super interesting. This makes the game so much more entertaining when you're watching. When you get a guy going up for a shot or for a dunk and he gets blocked, it's super entertaining. It's also a really big mental game for the player that actually receives the block. Because after that, it's really hard to build momentum once you're hit with a block. It's a hit to your ego a little bit. All right, so on the Toronto team, who are our main blockers? So we got Leonard, Lowry. All right, Leonard is over 16%. Lowry is almost 14%. That's pretty cool because Lowry is not one of the tallest guys on his team, and for him to get almost 14% of the blocks is really cool. And then you have Danny Green with 11. Oh man, that's super cool. Then Lowry has more blocks than Danny Green. That's pretty cool. All right, and then you have Sakam with 11, Van Vliet with almost 9. All right, and then who's next? So on the Golden State Warriors, you got Draymond Green with over 15%. Then you have Stephen Curry with almost 15%. Thompson with over 13%. Then you have Iguodala with almost 10%. And then Kevin Durant with over 9%. That's pretty cool. Got your... Wow, that's so cool. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, let's look at who does the most steals. So on Toronto, Leonard gets over 16% of the steals. Then you have Lowry with almost 14%. Danny Green with over 11%. Sakam with over 11% as well. Van Vliet with almost 9%. Then on the Golden State Warriors, Draymond Green. Man, this Draymond Green is honestly such a great asset to the Warriors. And then you got Stephen Curry with 15%, and Thompson with over 13%, Iguodala with almost 10%, Durant with 9%, Mooney with almost 8%, Cousins with almost 7 or over 6%, Livingston with 5%. All right, this is a lot of data, and I'm so happy that you guys are still listening and you're still here. This is really cool information, and we're almost done. So we've covered a lot of ground here. We looked at the number of games all teams play, which is 82. We looked at our top scorers. We looked at our top assisters. We looked at our top turnover creators. Next, we looked at who our top rebounders, blockers, and stealers are. And then next, we're going to look at who our best three-point shooters are, our best two-point shooters are, and our best free throw shooters are. All right, we're almost done. We've got 3 more metrics to go, and we'll be done with this comparison. All right, let's look at three-point shooters first. So this visualization here is called a heat map. You have your best players to the left, going all the way to your worst performing players to the right. So let's look at here. So right here, this is telling us that on our 3-point percentage, we can really count on Danny Green, Marc Gasol, Van Vliet, Powell, Sakam, Leonard, and Lowry to make our threes. All right. And then if we go to the Golden State Warriors, we can see that here we can count on Stephen Curry, Thompson, Durant, Cousins, Rebko, Quinn Cook, who put in 3 really awesome threes in game 2 that really brought the momentum up for the Warriors. We also have McKinney, and Iguodala, who made the winning three at the end of the game. And so one thing that I thought that was super funny in game number 2 is that Stephen Curry had made a comment about the coach, about the Raptors coach, not putting the defense on Iguodala and really concentrate on putting the defense on Curry and the other players, calling this disrespectful. But if we look at the numbers, it's actually not quite disrespectful because Iguodala is not the best three-point shooter on the team. And the game was super close. And if I were the coach of the Raptors, I may have done the same thing. The numbers were in favor to put the defense on Curry and the other guys that shoot three-pointers better, and not on Iguodala, even though he can shoot threes and he can hit them on really critical moments. But I don't think it was that disrespectful, but everyone's got their own opinion. But the data says what it says. And then you have Draymond Green and then the rest of the players. So what I like about the heat map is that it's super visual and you can see from the colors who are your best performers and then who are your worst performers. So let's say Kevin Durant is not there or Klay Thompson isn't there to take the threes. Well, then let's look at the other alternatives. We got Steph Curry, we have Cousins, we have Jerebko, we have Cook, McKinney, and Iguodala, and so we can count on these other guys to hit the threes if the opportunities are there. Next, let's look at our field goal percentages. So those are our 2-point. Sorry, that's my. But let's look at our field goal percentages. So those are our 2-pointers. Let's open that in full screen right here. So again, at the top, we got our Golden State Warriors. So our best 2-point shooters are Jones, Looney, Durant, Cousins, Iguodala, Curry, Sean Livingston, Thompson. Bogut put some really good alley-oops in game 2 that really helped get the Warriors momentum up during the second half. And then if we look at Toronto, let's look at the other ones. So we got Siakam, Ibaka, Leonard, Gasol. So this heat map just tells you from best players to your left to your worst players on your right, and then you can kind of pick and choose. All right, let's go to our last metric: free throw shooters. So free throw shooters, these are super essential on the foul. So getting your points in on the layup if you get fouled. Super good to get that goal in, but also if you hit the free throw at the same time, you're hitting a 3-point right there. And also if you get any technicals, free throw shooting is super important. They're 3 points. Oh yeah, if you get them on a technical, they're 3 points that don't even account into the actual playing time of the match. So they don't even account in the opportunities that are kind of limited to the minutes in the game that you actually have. So let's get started. So let's get into it. Let's look at Toronto. So we got our best free throw shooters on Toronto are Leonard. We've got Siakam, Lowry, Ibaka, Gasol, Van Vliet. But these players are your go-to free throw shooters. So if you watched game 2, I can now, looking back, understand why Leonard and Van Vliet and Lowry were pushing really hard to get the twos in and drawing the fouls, because they're actually good free throw shooters. So if they get the 2 in and then they get the 3-point, or if they get the 2 in with the free throw, it's a 3-point. So I can kind of see why they wanted to do that. I was asking myself why they weren't taking their threes, but the Raptors are actually, I think if you looked at the previous data, they're actually better 2-point shooters. Okay, and then let's look at the Golden State Warriors right here on the bottom right. We have Kevin Durant, Curry, Cousins, Thompson, Green, Jerebko, Looney, yeah, we got all these players that are really good at free throws. So yeah, I think I actually in a Jupyter notebook did some data analysis on Stephen Curry and other players on the Warriors team, and more times than not, Stephen Curry gets 100% of his free throw shots in the majority of his games. I think he's an over 80% free throw shooter, and on many occasions he's gotten 100% of his shots. And so he's an amazing free throw shooter. So when he does go for the two, you can tell that he actually a lot of the time tries to attract a foul, because he'll get a 3-point opportunity on that play. So Stephen Curry has an amazing shot, and I think Klay Thompson is actually quite similar on the free throw when I looked at the data. But I'll do that in another video when I really go into depth on actual players. All right. So those are my metrics that I wanted to share in this first episode. This is really a form of descriptive analysis. We're actually taking many data points, plotting them out on different ways, taking our domain knowledge in, for example, basketball, and trying to visually look at what patterns there are. And so this is a form of descriptive analysis. And we couldn't have done it without Elastic and using their Elasticsearch engine and Kibana as the visualization tool that you see right here. And I'm really looking forward to putting this in the cloud with the help of Amazon Web Services, so that you can open up your computer and get this dashboard, and you can try out different teams, you can filter out different players, and this is a really easy way to put a real quick number next to a team or a player, or do a player by player comparison or a team by team comparison. So thanks so much for listening. If you're on the podcast and watching, if you're on YouTube, I'm really excited what other data analytics I can do on basketball. I'm a huge basketball fan. I actually prefer playing than watching, but I really like, for one day, if I have kids, I'm able to use this data analytics to hopefully train them to be pros and to help them get better. And I hope with these videos and these podcasts, they help you understand the different metrics you can work towards. And I'd like into the future to do some machine learning on these metrics to predict game outcomes before they occur. I like to do sentiment analysis on, for example, Twitter, Facebook, all these social media areas, and figure out what the people think of the players and the teams. And there's so much stuff you can do with data. We are currently in another kind of industrial revolution with data. We're in another gold rush, but it's not gold, it's the data gold rush. And so I hope that I can inspire you guys to get excited about this, because it's really cool and you can get super useful information like I've shared with you today. If you found my content interesting and even learned something new, please like and subscribe below, and let me know in the comment section what your favorite part was, or even what other metrics you'd like to see next time. Stay tuned, and I'm excited to deliver more content for you guys. See you next time.